You're watching Let the Quran Speak. Now we answer questions we receive from you. If you have a question, visit our website, QuranSpeaks.com. Dr. Shabir, the question we have here is, can I communicate with my loved one who has died? And this question we get very often sent to us.
Mm-hmm. So it's not a question that is answered directly in the Quran or, in any hadith that I can be confident about regarding its authenticity and clarity about this matter. But there are a few indications here and there that scholars have tried to put together to answer this question. For example, in the 27th chapter of the Quran, in the 80th verse, it says, "Innaka la tusmi al-mauta," you cannot make the dead hear. But this is addressed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And some advance this as evidence that we cannot, the dead is not going to hear us. But that does not seem to be a legitimate understanding of this verse, because within the context, the verse seems to be saying that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, cannot make people hear who do not want to hear his message. So he's preaching to people. If some people want to turn a deaf ear, he cannot make them hear, meaning that he cannot, it's not so much the physical act of hearing, is the acceptance and understanding. So he cannot make them believe in his message. That is the context of that. So whether the dead can actually hear us, this is a different question. Now, of course, if we're speaking about hearing in the sense of, having an eardrum that will vibrate when sounds bounce off it or something like this. I don't know if I'm explaining scientifically how hearing works, but you get the idea. Without the physical apparatus of the ear and the eardrum and so on, how would one hear? So the dead person does not have that. So the dead person cannot hear in the same way that we hear. But then we say that God hears our prayers, and we don't imagine God to have the physical human faculty of hearing, but God hears.
Is different than human beings.
So is it possible that the human soul, having left this body, what we might call the human consciousness, is that consciousness still able to, in a way, hear what's going on in this world? Or maybe not hear, maybe hear is not the right word, but is that consciousness still aware of what is going on in this world? Is our speech to the dead somehow translated into a hearable form that the dead could be aware of? We don't know. These are mysteries. People would certainly like to know that their dead can be communicated with. So what else do we have in the hadith regarding this? It is mentioned that after a certain battle, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was speaking to the fallen soldiers, and somebody remarked about this. They're obviously puzzled, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that they could hear, but they just cannot respond. But of course, if they can hear, this could either be because at that time, the differentiation between life and death was not so precise as we have it now. If a person has fallen in battle, they could perhaps still have a certain degree of consciousness with them. They appear to be dead to all observances. Otherwise, they'll be taken as patients and treated and nursed back to life. But one could reach a certain state of lack of activity, that one would be presumed dead. But presumed dead could mean that they still have a certain degree of consciousness remaining. It's just not a degree of consciousness that will bring them back to a standing posture anytime soon, or anytime at all. So maybe they could, perhaps in that state, they could still hear. I don't know. Medically, one has to think about this. But more to the point, after they are dead and buried and their bodies have been rotted away, could their souls still be aware of what their relatives are saying? Some books I've read about this suggest that when a person dies, he meets with other souls who are on the other side and informs them of, mainly in response to their questions, about what their relatives are doing here in this world. And God knows best about that. It is mentioned that when we send salawat on the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, God restores life to him so that he could actually return the greeting. But this seems to mean that he would be constantly being restored to life, because Muslims are sending salawat from all over the world continuously. So we have to say in the end that this is an unanswerable question. And the best we can say is let's do good deeds on behalf of our dead relatives and ask God to bless them as a result of these good deeds.
Thank you for that final parting thought, Dr.
You're
Shabir.
welcome. Look, Sophia, my inbox is full. I have questions from our viewers.
Wow, that's quite a bit.
Your questions are coming out of my ears.
That's why we've got something really exciting planned for you, a YouTube Live Q&A. You can join us live, and Dr. Shabir will answer your questions as they come in.
This event will kick off our special Ramadan programming as well as our fundraising campaign.
It's all happening on Sunday, April 4th at 12 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel, Quran Speaks.
And that's right before Ramadan. I can't wait to see what questions we'll get.
Me too. It'll be fun to chat with you in real time.
Subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss this event.